I think we'll try and drill down. And then faculty and staff here as we can get them.
And also the invitation will be extended to the Stony Brook Council and University Council.
When did that invitation go out?
We're working on it.
Oh.
We just got off a conference call this morning where changes were made. So it was supposed to be Monday, maybe next week.
All right. I was going to put it in here, but we don't have to. Just if anybody didn't notice, it's sort of color-coded, so I'll make that not green.
I see a couple of things. Well, I think the Lauterbur event's at 5:30, right?
It starts at 5:30.
Yeah.
5:30.
And then our newsletters typically come out the last day of the month, so I'm not sure. You may want to push those.
Sure.
The one thing I want to mention about the Lauterbur event on the 5th is logistics-wise, the front of the mart will be open for the guests enter through the front of the mart. We're going to have to go to the front of the hospital and just direct them down the corridor to the opening. I don't know exactly the name of it. The Bridgeway?
It's called the Brook.
The Brook.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll be the only logistical change, basically, as far as arrival. But closer to that date, we'll be able to iron that out. We'll work with Sharon and Peggy and the rest of the team on that.
Mm-hmm.
As a consequence of the renovation, so I can see a couple of people going for what. There's a nice new bright hallway that connects 5th floor here with 5th floor in the mart. And the internal name for that now at the moment is the Brook.
Well,
or
yes
not.
and no.
Okay.
I mean, the Brook is all wayfinding on the 5th floor. I wish it were what you described, because that would make a lot more sense to me, to just identify that connector. But it's bigger than just that connector. And it will be on signage, so it'll be a term that we're going to be encouraging the public to use to find their way, but it's the way to everything, so I'm not sure how useful it will be.
Okay.
I'm just a messenger. Don't shoot me. One my decision. Or to call it the Brook for that matter. There's no water in our brook. But anyway, so where were we? My site, social media. Matthew.
Right. So I don't know if anyone has, but I threw together a general plan of focused initiative that makes sense to me as approaches based on themes that messaging. What doesn't do, and I guess what we need to sort of do is connect any of the relevant events. We see a calendar here, so that's possible. The other thing that I think is missing here is out of the messaging documents some kind of overall marketing strategy or plan. And I don't know, do we have something like that covers across all types of media?
Well, you're intimately acquainted with the messaging document,
right? Which
is what I alluded to at the outset. That's nearly final, that you and I worked on directly. So we had two agency presentations yesterday, one of which used that theme line and one of which did not. So if we select the other agency, I'd say all bets are off with that messaging document, and we're going to be going back to see what our new messaging looks like with the other agency.
Yeah, I'm less talking about messaging and more talking about the various media channels and how they coordinate around that messaging. So it's hard to really talk about social marketing without understanding how we place into straight content marketing, advertising, and media.
You should probably see the two presentations that were made, because both agencies have a component of social media marketing built into what they are proposing with a $9 price tag attached to it.
Okay. That's shared among.
Did you see the deliverables list on Google Drive?
Yeah.
Okay, because that has some of the content on it.
Yeah.
I know it's not all documents.
I know that there's a lot of pieces, and I know a lot of it is sort of in here. I'm just helpful to have that umbrella document that captures how the marketing will.
Well, I know you're headed out for 2 weeks on vacation, but I can put it in your transfer folder, and so you can look at what the two presentations
That'd be great.
have
That'd
to
be
say.
great. I don't know how much you want me to get into any of these things. I'm happy to talk about any of this that I did put together. If people are interested in that, or what's your thought?
Very interested.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, so again, this is built off the messaging document, and what I think I've tried to highlight here is an effort to do two things, I think, primarily. One is to create a community of influencers and ambassadors, and that would involve existing individuals that are associated with the hospital, with the cancer center, that have some kind of social media presence or some kind of content presence that we can leverage to get the word out. There's obviously a lot to say here, and so it makes sense. There's also a need to establish credibility. So in an effort to do that, I think we need to leverage the credibility that exists at the hospital. So this plan calls for, really initially some kind of influencer building, ambassador building, creating an evangelist community of doctors and experts and researchers who can share and spread the word effectively. The other piece that is key to point out, I think, is that just because it feels like in a social environment and considering the topic is that most effectively, the type of media that might most effectively play is video, short videos of some kind, to work with the agency closely to build very smart, short, themed, consistent video messages that go out, whether it's patients or doctors or experts in the field doing something or saying something and having those go out across channels. And again, having a similar feel, so there's a degree of consistency, not only in what's being said, but in the messaging of that. So I think those two things, if we can spend the time, the month leading up to November, building that community and beginning to establish that the presence and the messaging through those two channels, through those two means, I think that's an effective way to sort of get things going. So the document that I've shared here lays out those within various objectives, but if you look at the 6 objectives I lay out here: establishing social media presence, targeting a local prime potential audience, showing transformational care, as transformation is the overarching theme. That's something we want to continue playing into, is transformation, what transformation means and how transformation is being communicated. Create community of influencers, as I said, differentiate, and show credibility. Seem to be, to me, 6 of the most important objectives that we want to try to achieve from a social perspective, but I think this probably is really true across marketing. So some of the tactics, as I've mentioned before, Cancer Center going social, we need to establish a presence of Cancer Center, not just in the web, but on social media. I think it needs to probably have its own positioning somewhere, not something buried within another channel, but having a page on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and LinkedIn, probably primarily, maybe YouTube.
For the MART or for the Cancer Center?
Cancer Center.
Okay.
You mean their own Twitter accounts and Facebook?
Yeah.
Because that's what they've wanted for years. Okay, so we'll talk about that when you come back from vacation.
I mean,
But then would it live after this event?
I think it should. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a big enough initiative that it to me, it needs to have its own place.
But then they would need the personnel to...
We need to figure out how the personnel structure, all that, this is all about resource, obviously, yes. So I do this in the vacuum of hoping and praying that resource exists.
Okay.
And then if resource doesn't exist, then we have to sort of backtrack or figure out how we're creative. There is a social media person going to be hired in this space in the next 3 to 6 months. And hopefully that person will take on some of this. But I do think, I mean, as a overarching idea of social media, social media can't be something that exists within the responsibilities of one or two individuals. It's got to sort of cut across everything. It's that important. It's that, it's that impactful in terms of what it reaches. So we just need to, it sort of behooves us to sort of ask ourselves, how do we make it happen? And how does social media perpetuate?
So the influencer community, are you, so Dr. Moon does have a Twitter account. I don't know how many followers he has. So is that what you talked about, key people getting their own Twitter account?
Yeah, so I'd love to say, exactly, I'd love to say that we spend some time establishing who are 10 to 12 people that we want to tap and make them a voice of the Cancer Center, a voice of what we're about to do, who have credibility, who have a voice, who already have established networks and communities, who have a reach of some kind, because they're already out there. So let's leverage all that. Let's turn what is nothing into already 100,000 people or 10,000 people, even if it's just 10,000 people.
Right.
It's 10,000 people.
And that might be somebody at Brookhaven National Lab in Cold Spring Harbor? You're saying, or it doesn't?
Yeah, I think anywhere that you, I mean, this is where I'm going to be, I'm asking everyone here to sort of think through, where are the best places for us to find those people who are going to have the greatest impact, or, it's a combination of things. It's their existing network, it's their ability to talk to messaging and medicine and in a way that's going to be effective and influenced and impactful. So I think it's a good idea for us to sit down and think that through, because that, when we talk about resources, that's a key resource that isn't leveraged enough.
Right.
We think of ourselves, but the fact is, in the world of social media, it's everyone who's out there. So that's so going social is about establishing the places where we can sort of have that message going through and creating the brand and the personality and the persona of the Cancer Center online, and then also bringing the people into on board with helping us to drive people to those things, to those places.
So Clinton's explaining that our push behind the microsite is going to run through next June 30th. Mm-hmm. How about our social media campaign? Does it track that same timeline, or is it just the lead up to the ribbon cutting, and after that, kind of on our own? Or
I mean, I would say that social media is never ending, ongoing, and doesn't go away.
I mean,
but you're saying this particular campaign, I think it probably is about that. It probably falls into that track. I think that we want to have it going through June.
So our planning arc ought also to track until
right. Okay. If we believe that's, I mean, I don't know what kind of thinking's been done around the business initiative and when they think they're actually the center begins to gain traction.
I think it's important to have. I think patients will come and take pictures and give comments and reviews and things like that.
Yeah, we've always put something on social with these big events. So, and then we're going to have Discovery Day. We're going to have events.
For that, and then ongoing thereafter.
So certainly, but I think it has to be parallel. What the business goals are? Is it just that no one has any idea when the Cancer Center feels like it'll gain critical mass, it'll actually start churning patients in a significant way? And
it has a lot of patients now, so it's not.
I know I'm turning
ground up.
the new moving to the new